So here to discuss the Louisiana primary and the week's other top political stories is Cassandra Pye and Fiona Ma. Cassandra served as the Deputy Chief of Staff to Arnold Schwarzenegger when he was Governor of California, and Fiona Ma is a Democratic California State Assemblywoman. I want to thank you both for joining us here in the War Room on a Friday night.
Nice to be here.
Thank you. Great to have you both. All right, so Cassandra, polls have Romney trailing in Louisiana. What should his expectations be, and how does he survive a loss? How does he spin it?
Well, I think he's probably going to lose, but I think in the long run, two things will probably come out of Louisiana. One, I don't expect that Santorum will overtake anybody's base. I don't think he broadens his base, and I don't think it really means anything, as you say, in the long run. And all these Republicans are
now lining up, right? From Jim DeMint to Jeb to you name it, right?
Going well, so far, so good. I think what I'd say now is that the people have said that the long primary does not serve Governor Romney well. I think it does, because I think when it comes to November and we start to have independents look at this race, I think they're going to say this guy who came out of this primary was not necessarily too conservative. It's not necessarily too conservative.
Get out the Etch-a-Sketch. Come
on. The Etch-a-Sketch. I knew you were going to
get it on. I'm just saying.
And shake it around.
I think we actually have do we not have a soundbite on that? Yeah, let's listen to that. I think we got a soundbite of one of his adversaries.
The average cost of a family policy is up $1,300, and a key part of Obama's healthcare takeover will cost $100 billion more than promised. Higher costs for patients, higher costs for taxpayers.
Actually, that is a Republican National Committee ad on health care. So let me just talk about that health care issue. And I know, Fiona, you are very up on the health care. The fact that the RNC is taking out an ad on this health care argument that's going to happen next week is sort of an interesting use of resources, don't you think?
Well, I think they could probably spend their money on better uses. But honestly, I think the country is concerned about health care. I know for me, I've got a pre-existing condition, hepatitis B. And so having adequate, affordable, accessible health care is a #1 concern for me and my family.
Well, all these guys, I say these guys, because, of course, Cassandra's on the other side of the aisle on that, but they've been hammering this and hammering it effectively, because the polls are pretty clear that at this moment, there is at least a plurality that want to see a portion of, if not all, of the health care law repealed. What do Democrats have to do to be able to message this well?
Well, I think we haven't done a great job in messaging, but I think, the #1 cause of bankruptcies is still health care. I think 65% of Americans are on some sort of prescription drug medication every single day, and they are concerned about health care. I think people are scared of change, and maybe that's some of the rhetoric out there, is that, what you've got now you may not have, versus what you have now you may have more or better. And that should be the message.
The message has to get out. But Cassandra, here's the poll numbers. Actually, it's a McClatchy-Maris poll released today, and it shows 39% of independent voters want the Supreme Court to repeal the health care law. 24% say repeal the individual mandate, and 27% wanting the law to stand. So it seems like your team has done a good job. But let me just ask you, I mean, since Fiona has talked about having a pre-existing condition, don't you think that that portion, at least, of the law is something that is humane?
Well, of course I do. 53% of Republican voters don't like the law and want to see it repealed. And I think that's why the RNC is probably on the air and taking advantage of the fact that they've got an issue that's hot, that a large portion of the primary population cares about.
Anyway.
Now, I don't know if you saw this, but I got my Obama email today that's got a great message in it, and it talks very clearly about women.
What is the Obama message?
I did read it. I read my email. It talks about pre-existing conditions. It talks about women. It talks about insurance company rates. And then what I think I like that it says is that when they say they want to take it away, think about what they're taking it away. I do agree. There's not been enough good messaging around it. And I think what I see coming out right now is probably going to start to resonate with the voters, and particularly with women and with elderly voters who are going to care about this the most in the fall.
And I think that there will be a big push on this. I mean, the fact that you are getting messages and others are as well, but there will be surrogates that are put out on this issue of the health care. And of course, Supreme Court focus next week is going to be an opportunity to do that. So we're going to ask you guys to stick around. You're going to come right back after the break. And when we come back, it was a week that began with Romney winning Illinois and ended with his opponents waving Etch-a-Sketches. So you got to love politics. We'll talk about the week that was and tell you what's ahead next week. You are in the War Room, and it's only on Current TV. This is the work of editorial cartoonist R.J. Mattson of the St. Louis Post-Dispatch. As you can see, you have a man holding a recently fired gun saying, "I had a reasonable fear the neighborhood watch guy following me was going to fear for his life and shoot, so I shot him first." And then you got a police officer saying, "Well, it makes sense to me." This cartoon is obviously referring to the death of Trayvon Martin. It's one of the topics we want to discuss with tonight's political roundtable. We welcome back Cassandra Pai, who served as Deputy Chief of Staff to then California Governor Arnold Schwarzenegger, and Fiona Maas, a Democratic California State Assemblywoman. Okay, so Cassandra, I'm going to start with you because I want to have us listen to what Newt Gingrich said today. Take a listen.
Trying to turn it into a racial issue is fundamentally wrong.
Yeah, and
I really find it appalling.
I'm just saying, trying to turn it into a racial issue, he finds appalling.
So,
talk to me.
I'm going to talk to you. I thought about the president's remarks. I heard them on the radio, actually, on the way in this morning. And what I thought about is what other presidents would have said. I immediately thought about what George Bush would have said, for example. But then I just kind of worked my way back. And I really do believe that every president, back to as far as I can remember, would have spoken with the same kind of seriousness and heart, and probably with some personal touch on that story. And that's what I thought the president did. That's what I think George Bush would have done. And that's what I think
but
any
to say
decent...
it's not a racial issue?
Well...
I mean, come on.
My
son would not have been shot. My son would not have been shot.
And my 4 sons, who I worry about every time I send out, anytime they're in the car, anytime they're in the city, it absolutely is a racial issue. But it is... sometimes you have to stand in someone's shoes, and I thought that the president did that really well today. I thought he was tasteful, and I thought he spoke to the issue
and no
as
other
a parent.
president would have been able to say what he said.
They couldn't have said it that way, but I believe they would have been as human and as humane. And that's why what I heard from Newt Gingrich, I decided to discount and focus on what I think other Republicans would have said about it.
I mean, Fiona, I'm just curious, in these kind of partisan times, can we actually have an honest discussion about race?
I mean, I'd like to think so. I think in California we're a little different because we have such a diversity out here. But as elected officials, we speak from what we know. I speak as a woman, I speak as an Asian American, I speak as a small business owner. And when you're a governor, I'm sure you spoke from where you are as a mother, as an attorney. And so for people to jump on the president's word when he is speaking from his own perspective,
and from his heart.
And from his heart, I think is really disgusting of the person who said it, to tell you the truth.
Well, and there was a bunch, it wasn't just Newt Gingrich, it was the usual suspects on the far right who were trashing this very candid and revealing moment, I think.
I will say the candidates did a good job. I mean, I think
they
Santorum
did. Well,
spoke up. And,
other than
Romney,
Newt.
Right. I
put that aside.
Set that one aside. But I think the other candidates spoke up and spoke well, particularly with respect to the fact that the law needs to...
So now I would like you guys to listen. Let me move to the campaign front, the traditional campaign front, and the Republican fight. Let's listen to what Santorum said, and I do have that clip about the Etch-a-Sketch.
They're looking for someone who is not an Etch-a-Sketch candidate, but an etched-in-stone candidate, someone that they know that they can trust.
Actually, it's a really good metaphor, don't you think? I mean, he did a good job of picking up that metaphor.
Let's just say I'm pretty sure this one's going to stick.
I don't you
Well,
think so?
and in campaigns, that's what you look for, right? I mean,
I can
all the
only-
opponents look
Gotcha
for something
moment.
that they can hang the candidate's hat on and force them to live with it throughout the campaign and have certain, you know.
I just think, honestly, I mean, Romney, because of what he has done on health care, that whole flip-flop, because the U.S. healthcare system is based upon what he did, and he's now completely disavowed it and all the other things, I just think this particular metaphor was extremely unfortunate for him, and it's going to stick with him.
It'll
There's no
stick,
doubt.
but I do believe he will redeem himself in the fall like so many candidates do. Not just shake it up, but redeem himself.
Let me just ask you one other quick question, you guys, before we head out, because this was a week where the president really talked a lot about energy. Yeah. And Fiona, I'm curious from your perspective, we're here in a state with gasoline at whatever, 4.5, which is, you know, mind-boggling to many. Is the president's words, are his continual efforts to educate people about what he can do and can't do about gas, is it going to have an impact? Maybe here in California, it doesn't matter so much, does it?
Well, it does. We're one of the highest states in terms of gas prices, and we are doing what we can today. Governor Brown issued an executive order allocating $120 million to electric vehicle charging stations. So he is very serious about having 1.5 million emission-free electric vehicles on the road by 2025. So, you know, as a leader, we're doing what we can to wean ourselves off gas.
Appreciate you guys coming on. California Assemblywoman Fiona Ma, Cassandra Pai. So glad to have you guys here.